in the infrastructure cluster of the company. We welcome you, sir. All the students to please be seated during the session and not leave the auditorium.
Thank you and for the introduction, and good afternoon to everybody. Can you hear me clearly? Good afternoon all the dignitaries here and the members of the jury. I presume all the students are the members of the jury, because you are the people who will decide what I tell you makes sense and whether you go in for a career in engineering or whichever career you choose. It is indeed a privilege to be called to inspire young minds. And when the school contacted me through my home tutor, I'm still getting tutored at home since my wife is a teacher in the school, so she tutors me at home saying that there's nothing, you just keep aside your style of being a stand-up comedian and be serious and you'll convey the message. And then I said it is easier to perspire. Work hard, deliver the documents, give it to them and let them do what they have to do. But again she said, try it. You're a coward otherwise. So then she came up with a Shakespeare's quote. I'd like to share with you the quote. Cowards die many times before their death. The valiant taste of death but once. Of all the wonders I yet have heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear of death, which a necessary end will come when it will come. So that's why I'm here, to try and inspire you guys, to tell you that academics is not the be-all or end-all of everything. Please learn to be varied in your interests, learn to be playing some games, doing something in academics, doing something on sports, and also choose the career that you want to grow in. So, careers in engineering, of course, is a vast subject. The two pillars in your growing up years are your parents and your teachers. Keep in mind that whatever they discuss with you is keeping your good in mind. Once you have that, but you have to take your own decision. So the decision is difficult at a stage of your life that you are in, but the decision is yours. So you have to buy into it and then take a call on your career. So let us start with the conventional method of discussing what is an engineer. An engineer is one who conceptualizes, designs, tests, and builds either machines, structures, processes using science and maths. So now you have understood what is the foundation required. You better have a clear understanding that you need to have science and maths as your foundation. If you're good in communication, if you're good in teamwork, if you're good in sports and all other activities, are only going to help you to become a better engineer. Now, I'll give you some examples of how. Right from the depths of the ocean, you have oceanic engineering, to the space, you have rocket engineering. Across whatever you see, whatever you think of, there is always an engineer's hand behind it, including this mic which I'm speaking on. This mic is made of metal. Where does this metal come from? Metallurgy, some engineer. Where did the metal get extracted from? Mining engineer. Where did it get molded? In a factory. Where did this design come from? Design engineer. You talk of any field of activity, there's always an engineering hand behind it. So the world is your space. Can you imagine what all you can do to help people make their life easier? If we didn't have this mic, I would be speaking to an audience and trying to shout at the top of my voice, and half of you would hear it, half would just forget it. Correct? Similarly, if the civil engineer was not there, we would not have this enclosed space. There's an architect going behind it. There's a civil engineer who's made it, the acoustic engineer who has decided that sound should be carried to you through a medium, whether it is Wi-Fi, through cable, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer. Everybody is involved in just a simple act of me conveying to you about engineering. So that's what engineering can do. I'll just take a pause so that it will sink in what I've told you till now. And I turn my page. Since ages, India has always given the best engineers in the world. Let's have no doubt about it. From the time of Bhagirath and Agastya, Vasu, to Aryabhatta, C.V. Raman, Ramanujam, and our very own APJ Abdul Kalam. Do you have any doubts about the capabilities of Indian engineers? I'm sure none of you have. And we had various engineers who have also won Bharat Ratnas. We had the first female engineer, which is Dr. Lalita. And we had, at 14, Kairan Kazi, who became the youngest computer engineer with Elon Musk in SpaceX. In broad terms, engineering can be divided into 4 main areas, 4 core areas. And that is chemical, civil, electrical, and mechanical. As you go further down into it, there are so many other streams that you can get into, like aeronautical engineering, like artificial intelligence, like computers. And I can name out about 20 lines of engineering which could be of interest to you. Aerospace, civil engineering, chemical, but these are the basis from which you have to start to think about what is an engineer supposed to do. An engineer has to use the resources at hand to produce items, products, or processes or services which is useful to mankind. Once you are able to visualize a tunnel going under the sea for carrying people, manpower, stuff, material, you have seen the last tunnel which came down halfway, about 60 meters of it fell. So that is a tunnel which is trying to cut your travel time between point A to point B by more than 45 minutes. You imagine the amount of saving that you can contribute. So every area of activity, every sphere of life of ours is touched by engineering. Just to name a few so that you have, I think you can also Google it. There's no great science in Google. So you can also Google it. There are fields of scope like aerospace, environmental engineering, marine engineering, biomedical, industrial engineering, computer, mining, agriculture, automotive, material engineering, structural engineering, petroleum, you name it, there are enough and more. And the most recent developments are in artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning. These are some of the newer techniques which are going to last for the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. You are also going to have renewable energy resources. This also has to be done by engineers. Now, which engineering is best for 2050? Artificial intelligence and sustainable energy engineers. Now, as the world grapples with the challenges, professionals will design, develop, and implement renewable energy solutions focusing on areas such as solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal. So what is the academic part? And now for the inspiration part. What better way to share with you all my experience as an engineer? To start with, how I got into it. Olden times, it was very, very simple. Either engineering or medical or economics, that's it. There was no other choice. For me, it was simple. I gathered info about engineering. I found out that it is the simplest graduation to get through. Why? Because somebody has engineered the syllabus that way. They have broken it up into semesters. Just like you break down the mountain into parts so that you attack each part. And you learn as you go along. So, engineering is one of the easiest graduations to get through as long as you have the aptitude and the attitude. So, that's when I graduated into mechanical engineering. I became a graduate and I started my career in air conditioning. So, air conditioning is again a vast field. And I was working in a company called Tata, called Voltas in India, for more than 16, 17 years, out of which 10 were in air conditioning with sales and service. And what happens in air conditioning is because thermodynamical engineering plays a part, electrical engineering plays a part, and it conditions the air which we are all breathing and living in. And in Oman, as you all know, air conditioning is a major part of our life. I moved on from air conditioning line into mechanical equipment, where I was handling mining equipment. And there we used to have mining equipment which works in the open cast mines, like something like 10 cubic meter bucket sizes of excavators and dump trucks where the tire size would be about 2 meters higher than you. The tire itself used to be taller than you. So those are the kind of attractive, like engineering, strong engineering background activities that you can look at. From then, I then moved to the Gulf and I went into areas like building material. And now what I'm right now doing is marine projects, construction, services and environmental sciences. What I will tell you about marine projects is, we have built the fish landing center in Darset, just across. What gives you pride is that when you build something like that, the people who use it start feeling that, yes, I'm happy to be here, it's a nice place to walk, and you feel good that people feel good. So you have provided something for the people. Now the fish landing center is just across. After your main school, you go further down, up the hill to Ain't village on the left side. And that has the activity is basically you have to flatten out the place, you have to retrieve the land from the sea, you have to have the rocks, you have to have acropods. So this whole process is actually a design, build, construct and then hand over. So in the design stage itself, you have to conceptualize what you're going to deliver. You have to understand that building below the sea is much more difficult than building on land. On land, you have something which you can control. You know what your geotechnical survey is going to do, what is the soil condition, how you can make a building. But when you go offshore, when you're going into the sea, you are realizing that the sea has many different elements. You cannot have cement structures so easily under the sea. There are cement structures like caissons and breakwaters which you build in the sea. But however, they take much more design and conceptualization than the normal buildings. That is one part of the marine. We also are making an aggregate jetty 2.5 kilometers into the sea. Why 2.5 kilometers? So that bigger ships can come alongside and load aggregate from the jetty, which would be around 55,000 tons on each load. In Khimji Ramdas, we also have tied up with Oman Dry Dock, and we have built the first 2 vessels which are built in Oman. The first 2 ships built in Oman was built by Khimji Ramdas in the last 3 years. And one of those vessels is still sailing in Fujairah. The other is being used by our company within our own waters. As we go along in marine, we also have divided into 3 segments. We said, let's have marine civil, let's have marine mechanical, let's have marine electrical and electronics. Marine electrical electronics goes on to the ships, where you have radars, you have missile controls, you have electrical connections across. So these are some things which we do for the Navy, we do for the Coast Guard, we do for the ROP, which is having vessels here. On the other angle that we look at marine mechanical, what we do is for ship repair of mechanical items like their engines, their DG sets, their pumps, motors, whatever comes in mechanical on the ship itself. And on the marine civil, like I told you, we design and build structures which are used to shelter vessels which go for sailing. When they come back in, when they are parked, they need to be sheltered. So this is what we do in marine. And we also do services for the yachts, which are used by people for pleasure. But we are completing the angle by looking after the maintenance of those vessels and keep them running all along. In our construction services, we of course do land-based buildings. We do land-based buildings across Oman. We are presently doing, the latest one is the hockey stadium, which just came up next to the cricket stadium. It is a 3-storied building with a world-class hockey facility built in 5 months. Normally it takes a year. We have built it in a record 5 months, including the high towers and everything that is involved in that, all the MEP work, all the civil work, all the mechanical works which go into that. We are right now doing business with MOD, with ROP. We are constructing villas for them. And the next big job could be we collaborate for doing, again, a port and harbor. So port and harbor engineering, marine engineering are two different angles which you can look at, which not many people have really ventured into. If you look at marine engineering, it is basically for people who sail. They go onto the ship and do the repairs on the ship when it is sailing and do the maintenance when it is sailing. While if you do a ports and harbors, you are building the facility for the ships to call. You're building a facility for the vessels to call. Similarly, you must look at all new angles of engineering which would be specialized. If you're looking at the base programs, you can always specialize at a later stage. And like most of my colleagues at my time, we did our engineering, then we looked at what to do next. Then we said, okay, let's do manager by accident, that is MBA. And then we become managers in our roles, and then we help people to reach their potential in whichever field they are doing. To wrap up, I would like to leave you with a thought. Have any of you heard of something called menu engineering? If anybody has heard about menu engineering, please put up your hand. Now, menu engineering is a simple thing. Whenever you go to a hotel, you see the menu card. Do you know there is an engineering behind it? Because they try to attract your eyeball by putting up boxes, by putting up pop-ups. And why do they do that? Because they make maximum profit out of that. If you order what is there in the box, be sure their profit is 60%. If you order from the regular menu, their profit will be less. So just imagine there is something called menu engineering also to attract creative minds. So to conclude, I think it is essential that you have an aptitude for science and maths. And if you consider being an engineer, if you are able to take up a goal and you are able to persist, even if there is failure, there is trial and error, and you are able to produce something which is fruitful for society, you will be remembered forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Safana. As a lot to know, then you will say that we request our Vice Principal Ma'am to kindly accompany. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your guidance and motivating words. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present our memento and certificate to Mr. Ranjit Ravindran P. I would like to invite our Vice Principal, Mrs. Geeta Chauhan, to present the memento and certificate. Thank you, sir and ma'am.